They're going to have a conversion of the road to Damascus. Because now you say, by the way, are you going to stick with the president on the following president, the last guy, on this issue? And just start naming them, whatever it is. And for folks in the working class that are below 400, they will, in fact, increase their premiums. The public option will be available in my plan. We'll make sure it's not quality. We'll make sure it's only affordable. Democrat, join us. If you want a nominee who will bring this party together, who'll run a progressive, positive campaign and turn this primary from a campaign that's about negative attacks into one about what we're for, because we cannot get reelected. We cannot win this reelection. Excuse me, we can only reelect Donald Trump if, in fact, we get engaged in this circular firing squad here. It's got to be a positive campaign, so join us.
These union workers that have been working countless hours under the Trump administration, I'd like you to explain how you plan to not only keep us working, but how you intend on getting the union vote when there is a large portion of the union workers that are gun enthusiasts, and you are actively trying to diminish our Second Amendment right and take away our guns.
You're full of shit.
All right, thank you.
No, shush. Shush. I support the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment, just like right now, if you yell fire, that's not free speech. And from the very beginning, I have a shotgun, I have a 20 gauge, a 12 gauge, my sons hunt. Guess what? You're not allowed to own any weapon. I'm not taking your gun away at all. You need 100 rounds.
So when you were in Beto, when you said you're going to take our guns,
I did not say that. That's not true. I did not say that.
It's a viral video.
It's a viral video like the other ones they're putting out that are simply a lie.
Your voice, you said that you're taking the gun.
Well, he just clarified it.
Wait. Take your AR-14s.
Okay, this is not okay.
Hold on. All right. Hey, let's
don't tell me
there's a lot of guys.
A lot of guys wanted.
I'm not worried.
Hold on.
Give me a break, man. Don't be such a
You're
worried
pushing
guy.
up on me.
Hey, there's a lot of.
If Democrats nominate me, I believe we can beat Donald Trump.
And the court said, well, you don't have executive authority to do that on our own. And we did that in 1976. And it was struck, 2000. Backing up here. 2014 when we did that, and they struck it down.
Here's my on-air plea to the Vice President Joe Biden campaign. It was great to have this sit down here with Senator Sanders. I came all the way to Vermont to meet with him to do this extended interview. I would happily do the same for you. Haven't talked to you at all since this campaign started. I'd love to. Just saying.
So Biden tells this story, or some version of it, a lot. He says that, he went on this military trip and it was dangerous, but he wanted to go anywhere, and he goes to the Konar province of Afghanistan, and he hears about how this man had climbed down into a ravine to rescue a fallen soldier, and he comes back up and he doesn't want to get this medal because he feels so heartbroken that his fellow comrade has fallen. That's about 3 different really heroic war stories, all kind of pushed together into one anecdote.
Joe Biden has made all sorts of statements about his activism in the civil rights movement. Now, in the beginning of his career, he made similar statements that he's making today on the campaign trail, and then he got caught lying. And for a huge chunk of his political career, he stopped telling those lies.
This day, 30 years ago, Nelson Mandela walked out of prison and entered into discussions about apartheid. I had the great honor of meeting him. I had the great honor of being arrested with our UN ambassador on the streets of Soweto. The only African-American woman that ever been elected to the United States Senate. A whole range of people.
No,
my point is,
that's not true. The other one is here.
Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night.
There are growing concerns among Democrats, Corinne, in terms of whether he's up for this. As Joe and I was just saying, that the pace is only going to pick up. The campaign has largely, other than these debates, kept him out of a lot of big public moments in the public eye. What are you hearing in terms of Democrats' concerns about whether Joe Biden's simply up for the job?
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that they don't know if he is going to be. This is the folks in my circle, right? The folks who are doing this behind the scenes and wondering, can he do it if he becomes a nominee and he's up against Donald Trump.
This was his opening statement.
Well, look, the next president of the United States is going to have to do two things. Defeat Donald Trump. That's number one. And number two, he's going to have to be able to go into states like Georgia and North Carolina and other places. One, that Donald Trump doesn't want me to be the nominee. That's pretty clear. He held up aid to make sure that while at the same time innocent people in the Donbass are getting killed by Russian soldiers. Secondly, I found out that Vladimir Putin doesn't want me to be president.
All right, so of course, Willie, he's struggling there. He's closing his eyes. He knows he's having trouble finding words. The sentences are jumbled. The words are jumbled. But I just wonder, is the media grading Joe Biden on a scale? Are we afraid to say that a lot of his sentences don't make sense?
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. A historic moment today in the world of politics. After much trial and error and a great deal of anxiety and frustrated harumphing on cable news panels, the Democratic establishment tonight finally has chosen a candidate to stop Bernie Sanders before he can take their money. There's much relief in Washington right now. The Sanders threat is imminent and profound, and they've been sweating it. Imagine General Chinese Gordon surrounded by screaming Mahdi's at the siege of Khartoum, and you will know how they feel. Terrified. It's one thing if your country falls apart, if 10th graders can't read and 9-year-olds are taking puberty-blocking drugs and downtown L.A. looks like Calcutta and another 10,000 more Americans just died of fentanyl overdose, whatever. Americans are dying. Democrats are fine with that. They can live with it. They do. They don't say a word. But if there's a rogue candidate out there who might actually be serious about closing the carried interest loophole and forcing private equity barons to pay the same effective tax rate that you do, well, that cannot stand. It's totally and completely unacceptable. In fact, it's morally wrong. Alert the panel on Morning Joe, we're going to war. And tonight they have found their warhorse, a hero they imagine will carry them forth to victory against the wild-haired infidel from Vermont. It is this candidate, whom you should know, is literally now the youngest man in the Democratic race. This is the man they believe has the competence, the intensity, the intellect to repel the seething horde of Sandersites. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Joe Biden.
Look, tomorrow's Superstar Tuesday, and I want to thank you all. I tell you what, I'm rushing ahead, aren't I? 150 million people have been killed since 2007 when Bernie voted to exempt the gun manufacturers from liability. It would put 720 million women back in the workforce. Nobody should be in jail for a nonviolent crime. My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. What's not to like about Vermont in terms of the beauty of it? And what a neat town. Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. We choose science over fiction. We choose truth over facts. Think about it. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
Yep, that's the man. It's Super Thursday, and he's running for the United States Senate in memory of the nearly half the country that's murdered by guns in the last few years, guided by the belief that other children are as bright and talented as white kids, not to mention clean and articulate. And in the hope that he can put 750 million women back to work, whether they want to go or not. If that's the kind of transformational candidate you're looking for, Joe Biden is your man. Or if you're looking for someone to get you a second serving of Jell-O from the 4:30 early bird buffet, Biden could do that too. He's a Renaissance man. Though as he himself will tell you, the Renaissance was an awful long time ago, back during the Carter administration, actually. And you know what? Jimmy was a good guy, better than they said, and so on. Honestly, and how do you say this without being rude or mean, this whole thing is sad. Worse than that, it's cruel. Running Joe Biden for president is like making your dog wear a dress. It may make for an amusing Instagram post, but it's wrong. You can see the confusion in the dog's eyes. You can see the same thing in Joe Biden's eyes if you look closely. Why am I here? What are we talking about? Maybe if I make a lot of noises about push-ups, no one will notice. So far, the only thing we've learned from Biden's candidacy is that there's no one around him who cares enough to make him stop. Instead, there are only enablers.
Let's focus on something else. Joe 30330, he's obviously struggling. If he ever had a fastball, he lost it. If he ever had a softball, he lost that too. The man can barely get out a sentence before he loses his train of thought. The fits of anger, bizarre moments, agitation are pretty troublesome. And by the way, it just seems completely incapable of recalling basic fundamental facts like, oh, I'm running for president, not the Senate.
Damn.
Last night's debate, we got another example. During
President Obama reportedly told Joe Biden directly, quote, "You don't have to do this, Joe. You really don't."
That is not a joke. That is a natural fact.
I think Biden looked unsteady at many points.
Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night. The phone.
He's not the most polished speaker anymore.
The president thing, my friend from Vermont thinks that.
Watching his long, winding answers that don't really make sense in recent debates has also raised the question as to whether that has gotten worse and whether he is up for this.
The fact is that the bills that the future president here.
There's a lot of people who are concerned about Joe Biden's ability to carry the ball all the way across the end line without fumbling.
Go to Joe 30330.
He looked kind of unsteady and almost deer in the headlights.
So what are we doing? What's going on right now?
He's not that good at this. I mean, he's clearly not that strong a candidate, thinking on his feet.
Anyway, my time's up. I'm sorry.
I think there are some concerns, and they've been expressed by Democrats themselves.
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
Over whether Joe Biden is equipped to withstand a very grueling campaign.
We choose truth over facts.
Joe Biden was really shaky, both because he was stumbling through his answers.
I'm the vice president of the United States.
And also because the substance of those answers hasn't really gotten better.
Those details are irrelevant.
I think we're going to see growing questions, wondering if he has the mental and physical stamina to get through this campaign.
I love this place. Look, what's not to like about Vermont in terms of the beauty of it? And what a neat town.
Obama warned Biden's aides to make sure Biden didn't embarrass himself.
Imagine what would have happened if, God forbid, Barack Obama had been assassinated.
Real conversation that is happening among Democrats. Has he lost a step? Is he too shaky?
I want to be clear. I'm not going nuts.
There are definitely moments where you listen to Joe Biden and you just wonder,